All right, so what is your name?
My name is Gilbert. Nice to meet you.
Gilbert what?
Gilbert Ackerman.
Cool. So how old are you?
I'm 29.
29 years old. Okay, so what is your position and what do you lead?
So my position is the middle school pastor at Allison Park Church. I specifically lead anything associated with the middle school ministry, but the way that our structure is set up, between me and the high school pastor, I take care of like parent communication and social media things as well.
Cool. Awesome. So how long have you been in this position?
So I've been in this position roughly about a year. So I was in kind of a hybrid position that started in August of like 2018, where I was part middle school pastor, part actually kids pastor. And then let me think here, in August or September of this last year, just like 2 months ago, I ended up shifting to be full-time.
Cool. Okay. So going back even farther than that, then when did your leadership even begin? When would you say that started for you?
Like leadership in general or leadership within the church?
Yeah, let's go leadership in general and just talk me through that timeline.
Oh, gosh. Okay. So probably started against my will when I was in like 15, 16.
Cool.
Like sophomore, junior. The kids pastor at the time, his name was Joe Schaefer. He said, "Hey, you should do kids ministry," and I was like, and I had no backbone or spine to be able to say no, so I said yes. But actually, it's being really good for me because now I'm in ministry, so it's great. But started off doing stuff in Kids Zone, which is like our kids ministry, kindergarten through fifth grade, and I started doing some different things in there. Like I started to be on stage more, doing games, announcements, worship, things like that. And eventually that led to stuff with the youth group where I helped out with the middle school ministry and did all sorts of fun stuff with that.
Cool.
Is that enough background? Do you want me to
that's perfect. So yeah, where did you go to college then?
Went to college at Central Bible College, RIP, F in the chat boys. It is now done as part of Evangel University, which I don't think was that bad of a decision. Maybe that's a little bit controversial to say. Maybe some professor's going to watch this and be like, what? He was for the consolidation? But I will just say I'm very apathetic. I think it was a good decision overall in some senses because it consolidated some money. But so now it's part of Evangel University.
Cool. And so what was that first position you took at Allison Park Church then? What was that?
So my first position was as like an interim kind of campus pastor. I basically, as they were finding a guy to fill it full time, they had me just get in there and try to keep the ship afloat. And then that ended up becoming a kids ministry position, which then years down the road became middle school at like a different campus location of our church, but ended up settling into that.
Perfect. Sweet. Okay, cool. So what are some of the challenges you're facing right now in your leadership?
Good questions. So right now I am starting over a little bit as far as gaining influence goes. So I was a kids pastor at a smaller campus of our church, and a smaller church, you have like different advantages, but I was there for a total of 5 years. So by that point, kids, adults, parents start to trust you more. And when I started doing the hybrid role of middle school and kids, I was still at so I was middle school at one campus, kids ministry at the other. And I would be middle school during the week, kids ministry during the weekend at like a smaller campus. And so because of that, as much I didn't really get to know a lot of parents, it became a lot harder to kind of make connections because I wouldn't see them at church on Sunday and Saturday. Yeah. So for me, it's just kind of making sure that people know I'm the middle school pastor, as weird as that is, because they just would never see me on Saturday and Sunday. And it's kind of comical. The old middle school pastor, Josh, he would still sometimes get emails, and he would have to forward them to me because, he's now the worship director. But he would get emails and be like, "Hey, Gil, you should take care of this." I'm like, "I've been doing this for 10 months, and they still think he's the middle school pastor."
Yeah.
It's just getting people to get used to seeing me. I'm kind of starting over in some senses as far as starting to know people and build influence and send deep roots and things like that.
Yeah, for sure. So what are some of those steps then that you're taking to build that influence?
Talking to too many people, probably. I'm talking to a lot of people. My little introverted heart is just trying to work in overdrive, trying to make sure that a lot of parents see me, that a lot of kids see me on the weekends. It's a lot of just inserting myself into conversations and kind of swallowing my pride when I forget people's names. And not acting like I know their name. So I'll go up on Sunday and be like, "Oh, hey, you're Polly's mom. I forget your name. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. What is it?" And she'll tell me, and it'll be the third time she's told me. But I just consistently have to meet and talk and meet and talk and meet and talk and make sure people know me. Parents know me specifically because the students do, but the parents don't have much of an idea.
Cool. Sweet. Okay, so what now, like in your leadership as well, what is something that's really rewarding about your position where you're at now and leadership in general?
Good question. So my most rewarding thing that I do right now is I do a middle school like leadership discipleship group on Thursday nights. We meet for like 2.5 hours and we play games, we eat snacks, and we have a really fun time. But then we also discuss like leadership development for them at their age and things that they start to do to make themselves leaders within the youth group. And that's really fun for me because it's very selective. I have like picked the students that I want to invest into. So there's I think a total of 11 or 12 that I'm going to invest my personal time into and challenge and push and grow. And for me, that discipleship process is really, really rewarding. But more than that, giving them opportunities to be able to lead and like being able to be in, like, I know it sounds odd, but like to challenge them and like be intense with them when they're slacking. Be like, hey, you're sucking right now. I won't say that to like an 8th grader because it'll break their heart. But I will say, hey, you're not doing a very good job. Maybe I'd say something like that. Yeah. So that's the most rewarding thing.
Cool. Okay. So now that like, you know, you're in this position, has there ever been a time when you felt like maybe you weren't ready for the position or you doubted yourself while you're in that position, or maybe you questioned even if you should be there? Have you ever had any instances throughout all of your tenure of leadership? Have you ever had any instances of that?
I've like probably weekly, sometimes daily as a pastor. I sometimes run so that's like a pretty consistent thing. It depends on the season.
Yeah.
But that's based a lot more in insecurities within myself than it is probably the culture of the church I work at. The church that I work at, I'm very blessed to have good people around me that support me. But yeah, definitely, most definitely. I quit. So, especially because specifically, I never wanted to be a leader. I never wanted to be that person. And so like part of the story is a little bit like maybe like Job from the Bible. God's like saying, hey, go do this thing. And I'm like, no, I don't want to. And he's like, you're going to do it. And I'm like, no. But then eventually I'm like, all right, fine. So like kind of like reluctant to step into that. But yeah, that's more information than what you probably needed, professor that's watching this video. But there you go.
No, that's good. That's good. Okay, so what is something then you do to combat those doubts or combat the hesitations you have into stepping into what, you know, God is calling you to?
Yeah, so for me, what I do is obviously daily devos are super important. That's like the exercise routine, like physically just for your spirit. You have to be doing that, or I have to be doing that, otherwise I really struggle.
Yeah.
Another thing that I've been diligent in doing is talking about those things with people that I'm closest to. I have a tendency to be too private in my life and not open up and be vulnerable with enough people that are close to me. And I know that a lot of leaders and a lot of people just struggle with that. But specifically that action of opening up and saying that allows them to speak into my life and allows me to realize like, oh, maybe things aren't as bad as I thought they were. Like they like will give me perspective on it as well as encouragement. So that's super helpful.
Cool. Okay. So what's something you wish someone had told you before you took your current position of leadership? Like, is there a nugget of advice you wish somebody had been like, you need to know this before you're going to where you're at because this is going to kind of shock you?
Ooh, okay. I'm gonna have to think about that one. My current position of leadership.
Yeah, or honestly, even any position of leadership. Was there anything like maybe when you first step into leadership that it was like a reality shock of it wasn't what you expected?
Yeah, the biggest shock for me was realizing how much of my life was going to be spent in the public eye and how much I was going to need to sacrifice my own personal preferences with my privacy. So again, privacy of myself, not opening up and sharing with others. But there's also like a sense of like, I don't always enjoy the spotlight. By this point in my age and my career, I feel more comfortable with it. And there's times where I really do enjoy it, but someone being able to sit down and have them say like, hey, you really need to understand the social and the like attention like dynamic that you're going to carry as a pastor. Like you are going to be a very prominent person in their minds, and that has a lot of weight to it. That was something that I didn't understand, or maybe even people did say it to me and I just didn't realize it, but that was the biggest shocker for me in ministry is I was like, oh crap, everything's public. Everything.
Yeah, it's like there's this standard that you have to be at, and it's everyone knows that you have to be at that standard.
Yeah, and they know when you're not at that standard. It's like, oh no, I suck.
No, for sure. That's really, really good. Okay, so would you consider yourself an expert in leadership, and explain if yes, why, and if no, why not?
Caleb, wink once if I need to answer yes. Wink twice if I need to answer no. Okay, that's 3 winks. I don't know what to do with that. No, I don't. I don't think by any means I'm an expert in leadership. I think I've grown a lot. So I started doing ministry in 2013. It's now 2019, so I've been doing it for the past 6.5 years or so now. And I would not say that I am like a brilliant expert leader. I feel like I'm at the point of my leadership where the advice that I will give to people who are younger is don't do this kind of thing, more than here's all these brilliant, layered, complex, insightful things that maybe, like, I know people who've been doing this for 30 years. Those are the ones that I feel like have the real nuggets of wisdom because they've seen a lot more, they have a lot more scars. I feel like I can just probably say confidently, here's what not to do, and here's some general things to do, but I have by no means reached any pinnacle, or hopefully not the pinnacle of my leadership, because if this is as far as I'm going to be, that's going to be kind of sad. Like, just like plateau here for the next 30 years, that would feel terrible.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so if you're not an expert, then what is one way you continue to like improve yourself and grow in your leadership qualities?
I think a really good habit for me, and I think it's a good habit for younger leaders in general. So I'm 29. I think I said that earlier. Is being okay looking to your peers who might be better in areas of leadership than you. So leadership is very multifaceted. There's a lot of different sides to it, like a diamond. And so you might have a couple things that you do really well, but you're not going to do everything really well because that you can't do everything really well. God hasn't designed us that way.
Yeah.
But I do think you can improve. So being able to look to, I have 2 friends, Dave and Jordan, that I look to a lot in what they do, and how they interact with people and how they do their ministry, that I feel like I can study from and improve. That's the biggest thing, is being okay enough to admit, like, they are better at this than me. I want to learn from them. Yeah. It's kind of an interesting dynamic to be able to say that about a peer, and not just someone over you, but to say that about someone that's your friend. Like, they do this part better than me. I want to learn from them. So yeah, that's something that's helpful for me.
Cool. Okay. So then, in your opinion, what is one of the most important qualities in a great leader? You can do multiple qualities or just one, but to you, what is like one thing that you're like, wow, that's a great leader, and this is why?
Ooh, okay. I think for me, a degree of relatability, being able to feel like I understand them as a person and not just as a public figure, is important. Mm-hmm. So I think some of the leaders that have led the best are the ones that I feel like I could sit down and have a conversation with, mm-hmm. not someone who is just a very a very distant person. So not like a Hollywood celebrity, but a lot of people have said someone like, I'm going to give an example of this, and I don't know all of their leadership and the things that they've done, but I do think this is a good example. Someone like Bill Gates or Mark Zuckerberg, right, for Facebook. Mm-hmm. Both of them are very high-powered people, but they both very much feel like everyday, common, normal individuals. They're going to be way more intelligent than me, way more gifted in what they're doing than I am, but there's an element about them where I feel like, I could sit down and have a cup of coffee and have a good conversation with them and learn from them. Yeah. That idea of like relatability and accessibility, or maybe not accessibility, that's the wrong word, but relatability is something that I think is important, because that allows there to be like a good pipeline to transfer knowledge.
Yeah, for sure. That's really, really good. Okay, so this is the last question. But what is one piece of advice you would give somebody like me or somebody at the beginning of their leadership journey where they're just trying to learn? What's one thing you would say to them, like, hey, this is a good first step that you could take, or a good piece of advice for them?
Okay, so there's a very wise man, my senior year of college, or I guess my third year of college there at CBC. My lead pastor, Jeff, he said something that stuck with me and resonated with me. He said, it doesn't matter what you do or where you do it in ministry. What matters is who you do it with. Specifically when you're first starting out, but really for your whole life. And the idea behind that is, when you really are just getting your start in ministry, the first 5 or 10 years, you don't know anything. You're learning and you're figuring it out as you go. And obviously you can have success in that and God can bless you. I'm not saying you're just doomed to suck for 5 or 10 years, but really you don't know a lot about life. You don't know a lot about leadership. At 29, I'm still looking around going, I have so much more I need to like understand and learn to be all that God is calling me to be. But you could be in your ideal ministry spot, in your ideal location, but if you're not with the right support system, if you're not with the people who are around you and above you to be able to speak life and encouragement, I've seen a lot of pastors take a dream job and it's 3,000 miles away or 2,000 miles away from their home, and they don't really know anyone, and they burn out within a year or two, and move back home or take some other kind of gig or step down or step away from ministry because they didn't have the right people speaking into their lives. Ministry, especially early on, is very painful at times. There's a lot of like painful lessons unless someone is there to help, I think, walk you through that and speak the right kind of life over you. You can end up in a very dark spot. So I would say find the right who. Don't worry so much about the what or where. Those can be very flexible. I never felt called to kids ministry. I did it for 5 years. Never felt called to it. Never was like, yes, God has burdened me with this. But it was the right who. It wasn't even necessarily the right what or where. It was like, okay, this is kind of flexible. I guess I can kind of do this. But it was the right who, and I think that has been the North Star in all of my ministry journeys. Like, if I can have that, I know I'm going to end up at least in the right area if I can follow that. So
yeah, that's good. Cool. Well, do you have anything else you'd like to say or little nuggets of wisdom you'd like to impart?
Caleb, I really, really, really think you should bring back your mustache. That's it. That's
Thank you. Cool. Well, it's been great talking to you, and thanks so much, Gilbert, for all your insight.
For sure, man.
Sweet.